My actual first name's Andrew, but Douglas Moon just sounds nicer. So you can call me either one. Douglas, Andrew, it doesn't really matter to me. You can call me whatever you want. I'm doing something again today that I did yesterday and was very special for me. It was very meaningful. And it continues to show me I'm in a different place than I was in yesterday. And I want to go ahead and say ahead of time that, like, if you end up watching this back, which if you do, first of all, thank you for either coming through live or taking the time to watch it back later. But whichever way you do it, if you watch it back, I am a YouTuber who does fragrance reviews. I love perfumery very deeply, so that's my main thing. But yesterday, for the first time, I tried this out because I thought, you know what, I really love getting to connect with people, and I feel like in the social media world, we spend so much time online being disconnected from ourselves and also maybe from community as much as perhaps we should. So I thought, all right, my favorite artists and musicians and stuff, when I hear certain words, when I hear certain lines, it gives me something to connect to. And those moments where maybe you feel very alienated, very alone, even if you're surrounded by a bunch of people, if you don't really learn to express yourself openly, sometimes it can really just continue to start a build up day by day of feeling more and more isolated. And so I decided, since my favorite artists connect to me, but I don't connect with them personally, but because I get to listen to music and it makes me feel at least heard, or it gives me some type of expression, I thought I'd start doing these from time to time here on the channel, where we just kind of openly talk about things, whatever we're thinking, experiencing. And I know that for a lot of people who might come through, it might just kind of seem like, who cares what strangers are talking about? But for some of us, it's nice to just open up and express ourselves a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm doing this for. I did it yesterday. I'm doing it today. I don't know when I'm going to do it again, but there's things I like to talk about, and especially, again, as somebody who I myself go through stuff, but I kind of want to remember and remind each other that everybody's going through things at varying degrees, and sometimes it's just nice to talk. So I'm going to go ahead and say ahead of time, there's people who like to glorify mental health stuff, or excuse me, glamorize and glorify mental health stuff on the internet. They do that. That's definitely not something that I'm doing here. Just like with my fragrance reviews, I'm never trying to push crap at people. When I do this kind of stuff, or I just want to open up and like talk a little bit, I never want to glamorize stuff, because mental health is something that we definitely should not make fun of. But at the same time, we also don't need to make it seem cool. We don't need to make it seem like something people should want to make their identity. I see that a lot. It's kind of like people who are diagnosed with severe bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or who knows what. What's up, Spooky? That's a fun name. People, diagnosed with something. It's interesting that, like a lot of other things, it becomes an aesthetic almost, as weird as that might sound. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I understand. But sometimes it really does become kind of like a thing, like, this is my thing now. I am bipolar, or I am, I don't know, like, as strange as this might sound, as much as I have serious support for people who have children and or themselves are autistic or on the spectrum, I've actually personally known people who claim without being diagnosed to have autism or severe this or severe that, because it just fits whatever they self-diagnose, and then it kind of becomes their identity or their thing. So I'm not into all that, but I do care about mental health, and I like the idea of just talking about stuff and having like an open floor. So as long as you're being respectful to people on this channel, just before I get really talking, that's just what I do. I'm a fragrance reviewer, but I like having these personal times because I'm nobody famous or well known or nothing like that in the slightest amount. But I like to have an open community here where we just get to talk about life and things. And that's just the way I am, and that's the way I welcome people to be. So again, even if you never watch another one of my videos or nothing, when I have these times, if you got stuff on your mind, if you got stuff on your heart, I have experienced that sometimes it's nice to just talk to strangers, as weird as that might sound. So please feel free to do that. You're welcome. If you're going through stuff, you don't know me, I don't know you. If you have been in my channel before, thank you. Welcome back. And again, if you ever coming through like the troll or something like that, then I'm just gonna go ahead and say ahead of time, especially if you're rude and disrespectful or overly vulgar, I'm gonna block you from the chat, or my mods, when they come through, they're gonna do the same thing. I get it, it's funny from time to time, but that's just not what's gonna happen here. Let me see. I remember, also another thing, I get very sidetracked My mind goes all over the place. You're just gonna, if you're not okay with that, I appreciate that. You don't have to be here. But if you're all right with that, I ramble. So you're welcome here, and you can do this. Like I said, if you're not spamming, you're welcome to do the same thing in the chat. Yeah, on Tumblr, I wasn't much of a Tumblr person, but I've had friends in the past who, most people will remain nameless here on the channel unless they say it's okay. Or JC, hey buddy, thanks for being here. But I've had friends in the past who definitely became well known ish on the internet, and they themselves fell into that thing of kind of like trying to discover them. We're always trying to figure ourselves out. Like, this is the way it is, but they would self diagnose mental health things, and then I think people find community in glorifying this stuff. It's kind of like we find community in pretty much everything. I don't know if you guys know the band AFI. They came out with a new CD the other day. They were, if you recognize this, they were one of my favorite bands. They still are to this day. I love watching them grow and change. And the singer was talking about how through music, people, develop communities, identity, or parts of their identity through that stuff. And just like my favorite perfumer, I'm a fragrance channel. That's not what I'm doing here, but I will talk about that stuff later. But I'm a fragrance reviewer, and I work around fragrances and stuff. But through fragrances, for instance, that's a way of like expressing identity. We do that through a lot of stuff, just trying to figure out who we are as we fit into our little communities and larger communities. But mental health definitely became a thing that was like popularized, and AFI I listen to great. I love AFI, so always will, no matter what. Like, I appreciate the way that they do the things they do, but definitely, even me sitting here right now, when I decided to start trying to do these kind of streams, I'm nervous about it. I really am, because already, I'm just going to say, again, I'm just throwing out my thoughts, and it's okay if you guys don't get it, if you disagree. I know this might be boring for a lot of people, but I just like to have an open space where we just kind of communicate while I got the time to do it. Um, so I myself, like looking how I do, having the tattoos that I have, that already is like a strike against me a lot of times, where people assume that I'm trying to get like a lot of attention. I'm 32. I've looked like this since I was 18, like straight out of high school, started doing music and stuff back then. But it became like, back then it wasn't like the coolest thing in the world. It was still kind of like a subculture thing, whereas now, um, again, I'm a rambler, so you guys are, if it's boring, that's cool. But I remember this period where the SoundCloud rap and all this other stuff came, and then looking the way that I do started becoming less like and I didn't do this to be different, but by any stretch of the means, I actually hate being looked at, which is stupid and sounds contradictory, but it started becoming more mainstream and popular to start like smothering your face and hands and tattoos, and just like everybody started getting on the mat, like different walks of life. And so nowadays I appreciate that, and I think it's cool. It became more generally accepted, although there's problematic areas where people started doing it just to be cool. But on the flip side, there's always like an elitist feel that you'll kind of get. Like, kind of like, as stupid as this is going to sound, um, oh, like wearing skinny jeans thing or whatever. I'll never forget being called like gay and all this other junk when I was younger by like certain types of folks for looking a certain way. And then you flip over, and then all of a sudden, like now, Lil Wayne and whoever starts wearing stuff. Next thing you know, it becomes really popular. And then the same people who used to like make fun of me or whatever for looking a certain way or dressing that way. And it's funny because at first I was kind of elitist about it. But then, in that stupid mentality of like, how dare you? You used to make fun of me. But then you kind of accept, like, hey, it's cool. It's cool that like things are becoming kind of normal and everybody's doing whatever they want. So stuff like that. But when mental health becomes a thing where it becomes glorified on the internet, and everybody's kind of like making it an image or whatever, that's when it goes into an unhealthy realm. And no longer something that you can just be okay with. So that's not what I'm doing here. I just like to have open discussions. To my buddy, I am blocking you from the chat, and the reason that I'm doing that is because I don't welcome people doing spamming. So I block anybody from the chat if you start spamming. Also, if you're ever looking for like an argument, and I don't do that here. It's not my thing. It's just not my style. I don't argue with people, go down that road. Because it's a waste of our time. So I'm just here, like I'm a fragrance YouTuber, but I am here, like I like to do these things where we're just kind of open, talk about life, talk about stuff, because my personal experience is like connecting through discussion, connecting through art, whatever. Sometimes you're just going through stuff, and it's just like, again, nice to talk to or listen to strangers. So it might sound really weird to a lot of people, but it helps me. And yesterday, for instance, I was going through a lot, dealing with some grief, and very much in a bad spot. And I thought, why not try it? And it really made me happy when I did this kind of stream, and there was people who I got to talk with who were also going through stuff. So, like I said, for whatever reason, talking to strangers sometimes can be really cathartic and nice. So that's my one bit. What's up, Omar? Super happy to see you. I had a metalhead elitist phase. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. This is a quick sidebar off the normal topic of this, but it's kind of like Sleep Token. Anybody who knows who they are, I really love that band. I have since the very first EP came out, and I discovered it by total accident. Some friend of mine had it on his thing, and I was checking out his playlist, and I picked a song, and I was like, wow, this is really great. I like it. I grew up listening to like poppy stuff, so I love NSYNC and all that jazz. Whereas I really, so quick side fact, again, I'm a rambler. If you're not okay with that, you don't have to be here on this channel. I just, when I got free time, like I'm waiting for my wife to get off work this morning so we can do some appointments and stuff, I like to do this kind of stuff. It's fun to stream and talk to you guys. Omar, by the way, I hope you're doing great today. But when I was little, I was really obsessed with NSYNC. Not so much Backstreet Boys. They were cool, but I don't know what it is. I just really liked NSYNC and the way they did the music that they did. And so there's little videos that I still have, like VHSs. I've been making videos since I was small. My dad always had a video camera, and he would make when things were good. So it was very difficult time as a child to some degree, not nearly as bad as lots of other people. So I'm not like, woe is me. But when things were good, he'd break out his camera. We like make home videos and stuff. And when we had little vacations, when we had those, we'd make home videos. I always loved making little videos for memory's sake. And I started filming stuff of myself because I was a big movie person. But I did make videos of me trying to practice NSYNC dance moves. And I remember like going in my dad's closet and getting his little leather jacket and leather pants thing he had. So that's just a stupid side fact, but I remember I was really into that. So pop and all that crap and trying to dance, which I sucked at, by the way. But doing that was something that was a big thing for me as a kid. So I love pop music, but then I also got into like punk, hardcore, metal, all that junk growing up. But today, just my random stupid thoughts, they trail everywhere. But with Sleep Token, it's funny because so many people like in the metal world who are like always talking about being very accepting of people are like the biggest elitists and like slam dunking all over stuff like Sleep Token's new album because they're just like, it's so poppy, it's not metal at all. It's like, who cares? What does that really matter? But people just like to say, this is us, you're not in this group. You're different. If it's not there and it's getting even remotely categorized close to it, it's like push it out. So there's nowhere where that's safe. Like all across the spectrum, people are always making an us versus them thing. So, but again, just random stupid thoughts. But yeah, I just wanted to just do an introduction. Again, it's very wherever, but I'm Andrew. The channel's my middle name, so Douglas Moon Fragrance, and so that's what my main thing is, for fragrance review. I did not just fart, by the way. I swear that was my. I will fart during these streams sometimes, whatever. I'm not really trying to hide nothing, but I got irritable bowel syndrome, so it happens, whatever. But that was my shoe, I swear. But anyway. But yeah, so pretty much I thought it's nice to just have this time of just talking. So I kind of just wanted to open the floor as I ramble. You guys are welcome if you are just somebody out there going through things. So just random junk about me real quick. 7 years sober. I was went through a lot of stuff with addiction for 11 years. If you're going through that, you're more than welcome. It's a safe place here. Again, if anybody starts like trying to badger you or talk crap to you or be rude in the comments, I'm gonna block them. So please feel free to talk about stuff if you need to. Express yourself if you're feeling isolated, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling misunderstood, or just anything like that. As corny as that might sound to a lot of folks, just please, this is a good place to just let it out, and nobody's gonna be allowed to bully you in any way, shape, or form. And that's what I'm gonna do here. So I ain't no hero. I ain't nobody special. You guys don't even know who the heck I am. But I just like realize it's good to have community sometimes because we get very isolated online. And as well, even when you got people in your life, like me, my wife, like she's my best friend in the world. We talk about anything and everything that's on our minds to an extent, but then there's still like these walls where from time to time as people, like for me, I definitely was thinking about yesterday, and that's one of the things I was talking through here during the stream, how from my life, my early on past, my years of addictions and stuff I did, there's a lot of, I realized something last night that I didn't talk about yesterday that I wanted to kind of bring up today, because maybe again, I'm going to talk about me, and I don't do it for you to feel bad for me or nothing, but just again, like my experience, people I look up to, when I hear lyrics and songs or when I hear them talk about stuff they went through, sometimes it makes me feel good to know we're like maybe in some way, shape, or form on the same page, or they might understand. So that's why I want to do this. I just talk about stuff, and if you hear me say anything that you even remotely relate to, you don't have to say nothing. But maybe I just hope that in some way, shape, or form it helps, or that you at least feel like you're not all on your own. So again, always a safe place here. If somebody starts acting stupid in the comments, they'll get blocked. If you need to talk about whatever, just do it. I'm not a professional. I'm not gonna sit here and say I can help you with nothing, but I will at least, try, or you'll be heard. So with that being said, I realized yesterday, I talked about how I was feeling really emotional yesterday. Other people that again, once again, when you come from a life of addiction, or even if you don't, but regardless, you'll constantly hear, like, I'm 7 years sober and I still hear all the time people that I loved who are passing away. People who didn't turn away from their addictions that I loved so much. People who are still trapped. So I know too many people all year long who have taken their own lives, who unfortunately lost their lives because they just couldn't break free from addiction. And so again, if you're going through that right now, you're more than welcome to like talk here in this place. But for me, I realized last night again, one of the things that I hold on to real hard, that I struggle really hard to let go of, is guilt. Because even though I did make the choice to turn away from my addictions, I let so many bad things happen in my life early on that I could have done something about. I saw so many bad things happen that I feel like I could have stepped in and did something. But as well, there's so many good people that I know who didn't make it through, who didn't come out the other side. And sometimes it's like really hard not to think like, why was I able to overcome that? Why me? So why did I get to choose to do better? So again, I'm not really beating myself up today, but yesterday was one of those days where I was in that place of like, why did I get to make the decision? Because like, I believe in God, for instance, but I'm not quite in a certain place. Maybe a lot of other people have planted themselves in roots for reasons for that. um, but somebody commented very thoughtfully, but we're commenting how like, well, everything happens the way God intended it to, blah 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 blah. And so I do believe like in God, and that God has intentions and plans for people's lives, and yet at the same time there's a coalescing of. And again, by the way, if you're an atheist, if you're this or that and the other, that's totally okay. You're welcome here as long as you're being respectful. I don't mind that. I'm not ever here to argue like beliefs and stuff like that. I'll talk about them, but you're welcome to do the same as long as you're being respectful. But I believe there's like this line here, like a tiptoe, where there's a creator, a being who loves us, who has things in like his own or its own designs, but at the same time, we truly do have freedom of will. And I believe that because of addiction. So because I've personally got to experience and witness, we have like a physical nature that gets overridden by the chemical compounds of um, drugs and alcohol, stuff like that. But on the flip side, even though your body becomes chemically altered to depend on these things, you have a actual internal will that can override that. Instead of just being a slave to animal nature, where you like once something's altered, you're just stuck there. You actually have a ability to override that by making the decisions to use your internal spiritual will to override what's happening physically so that you can break free from chemically altered addiction. It's not just a mental thing. Addiction literally becomes a physical thing when it's substances and things like that, and yet you can override it. So for me, again, it's okay if people think that's a straw man or if they're against that, but for me, that I can see that as clearly a good evidence for freedom of will. So with that being said, again, I'm not here to argue stuff. I do believe there is, but when somebody says that God's like literally planned everything, I'm like, no, God has plans for stuff. If you believe in God, if you don't, that's okay. But you have a freedom of choice, and you play a role in everything. So again, just rewinding it back, I have struggled with that concept of like an unfairness for people. I'm going to use like family here as an example real quick. By the way, if you're new here, my name's Andrew, or Douglas Moon. I'm a fragrance reviewer, but I really like just trying these out, just doing streams where we talk about life and stuff. So just in case you're going through things, like even if you think it's completely stupid, I'm not here glamorizing or glorifying mental health or struggles or addiction, nothing like that. I'm just talking about this stuff in case you're going through things. Maybe it'll make you feel a little better. Maybe it'll make you feel like you're not all on your own. So I ramble, I talk, but if you're okay with that, you're welcome here. Always keeping it respectful. But anyway, using my own family as an example, right? Me and my wife were talking yesterday. So my cousins have struggled with being in and out of prison their entire like adult lives, since teenagehood all the way to now. And I love you too, buddy. Thank you, Tyler, for being here. I really do. I care about every last one of you guys. It sounds like some. I'm very self-analytical, And I think a lot about like how this is going to come off. Again, like I'm very cringed about myself trying to do this, looking how I do, tattoos and all that stuff. I look like your generic young alternative person trying to talk about mental health and stuff. So I get that, and I'm not even that young anymore. I'm 32, still young enough, but I'm not trying to be that. I just really want to, open up and connect with you guys because in the past, like I said, that's been meaningful for me. That's part of what helped me get through, like my addiction and stuff like that in the past, was connecting to other people who've been there and overcame that. So, yeah, just whether it's addiction or whatever, nothing's too big or too small here. And we'll get to more of that a little bit later. But, so yeah, like with my cousins, and this is what brings me back to like yesterday's core thing about how encouragement and discouragement goes such a long way with how people will develop and literally and truly believing in your ability to overcome things goes the longest way with whether or not you will overcome stuff. Um, and again, we'll touch more on that down the road if I can remember to come back to it. But with my cousins, dealing with serious addiction way beyond me, like my story, when I start telling it, sounds like I went through some bad stuff, but I haven't gone through the tip of the iceberg compared to so many people out there. Even if my story was bad compared to like what we would call hopefully normal. But yeah, with my cousins, for instance, their dad was unfortunately of someone who was seriously struggling with hard drugs from the time before they was even born into their childhood. They were introduced to um, a very bad lifestyle from the time they were tiny, watching their dad do things. I love this man too, by the way. I'm not dumping on him, but I'm just telling you their story. They were introduced to seeing their dad do things that they shouldn't have at a very young age. They disrespected their mom from the time that I can remember of them being like 5 or 6 years old. Like whoopings and none of that stuff did nothing for them. They didn't care. No punishment was too scary for them because they had already witnessed like very dark things. And so in a way, I see that as they didn't really stand much of a chance. So by the time their dad was gone off doing his thing on really hard drugs, and then they were early teens, and then they were like, we're going to follow in footsteps because they thought their dad was cool. They thought he was awesome. But he himself, like, it's easy to go, how dare he? Unfortunately, no, their dad's passed away. He passed away a couple of years ago. But he was a very sweet man. He just really struggled because of his own, there's like generationally. That's something I bring up a lot. It's like we generationally pass down stuff. And that's why it's so important to try to overcome that and be the difference for the next generation, for your kids, if you can. And I failed miserably so much in my life too, and still continue to fail in many aspects. But I see that, and I think about how they ended up. And it's easy to be angry at my cousins, for instance, of like how they treat their mom, all the stuff they've done, and everything. But at the same time, I try to think of it from how much can we really blame people from the time that their childhood of them teaching them to be a certain way. So I think about how stuff really affects people, but regardless, I just feel bad like asking why. Why did they end up in those situations where it seems so bleak and so hopeless, and they're just in and out of prison, violence, all this stuff, death. And then there's me, where my childhood was abusive and rough, but at the same time, I didn't, my dad wasn't on drugs or anything like that. And ultimately, regardless of the violence and everything, still, I was able to overcome my addictions and change my life, and they weren't. It's really tough to see that kind of stuff and to process real quick. Let me see. We suffer from one thing alone, a spiritual malady. Sorry, it's a little distant. That once came over, we straighten out mentally and physically. We are called to be free and use your freedom to. Awesome. I appreciate you guys coming through here and taking the time to comment and share your thoughts as well. Because, like I said, it's an open floor for anybody to do that when I do this kind of stuff here. But yeah, like it's just a difficult thing to think about when you come from those dark places to see other people and then think, dang, like I really, really feel horrible for people who aren't able to come out the other side. So, having lost so many people these past couple of years, people like me, myself, and hopefully, not you, but if you do, I hope you understand we're not all on our own here. Go through insane amounts of guilt. They're like, how dare I still be here and be healthier than I was before, and I have a wife, and we bought a home, like our second time we've moved into a new home that we got to buy and sell our old house, like, and crazy things happening. And me doing this channel, I always wanted to make videos and stuff. And for better or for worse, regardless of how things are, or screw some algorithm crap, like I get to sit here and talk with you guys. Like I'm still alive and I'm sober for a long time now. I get to talk with people like right now, interacting through the internet. And when I think about that, I'm like, it's so crazy. Look at how my life ended up. Whereas so many people I keep hearing from the town that I'm from who didn't make it through their addiction on the other side, I ain't gonna lie, like there's times that it's really hard not to feel like guilt for some strange reason of like how dare I have done all the horrible things I did and I came out the other side. So I know that's self-inflicted, um, to some degree or another, but it's really hard not to be like it's really hard not to hold on to that. So I don't know if any of you guys experience that same type of stuff, or I don't know, how many people out there are struggling from one end or the other. Because whether you're on the one end looking at people being addicted, which I have unfortunately had that experience now, or whether you're on the side of still going through addiction, or even if it's not addiction, if you're just watching people suffer through things, that's really a core thing here. Is like we all feel stuff, and for me, leading down further to the point of this for myself is like me going through guilt of like why am I still here, but so many people that I love did not choose to overcome their addiction and are dropping like flies. Then even more than that, it's like it weighs on me often, and then when I think about wanting to talk about that stuff on those days it's really hard, or you find out another person's past, sometimes you just don't feel like it's okay to bring it up, or that you're going to be bothering people. Especially with the frequency, some of us lose people. You don't want to talk about it because you feel like you're going to be bothering people. There's a test called the ACEs test. It's mental health professional. I recommend everyone to take it. Assess your childhood trauma and the likelihood of you dying at a young age. That's very. I appreciate you, Tyler. Thank you so much for like sharing the information that you do. By the way, with everybody who comes through, anybody who actually ends up in the chat, because, like I said, when I'm not doing fragrance content, I'm doing this stuff. Every single one of you guys are welcome to like openly talk, express yourself. And nothing's too small. That was one of the reasons I titled this "Everyone Experiences Things Differently." Is that's my thing, right? Like again, my cousins went through way worse stuff than me, and I know people who have went through way worse stuff than them. But it's not a contest. So me, I had an abusive childhood. I could easily be like allow myself, and I have allowed myself to. I'm sitting there listening to maybe somebody complain that they had a very privileged life, but their dad just didn't show them enough love, or whatever, or like didn't express like I love you that much. And I've had those moments when I was younger of being like, who cares? Like, why are you telling? Like, my dad used to beat me. What are you talking about? I don't care if your dad didn't tell you. I've been through that before. And then it took me a long time to start to realize, wait a minute, does my pain from my personal experience, is it actually worse than this person? Their personal experience, this is the worst that they get. This is the worst they understand. But is my suffering, if we was to put it on a scale, the stuff I went through, do I get to say like I hurt deeper than them just because my situation might have been worse than theirs at a time? That's stuff that really started me down a long trail of just trying to understand like every single person experiences things through whatever it is that they knew. It doesn't mean that people who didn't go through things as bad as you did don't feel the same level of like pain, perhaps, as you have based on their own way to perceive the world. So maybe somebody didn't get beat, but perhaps then not being told, encouraged, or whatever as much, as they might feel like they needed or hoped for, or just didn't like impress their parents or this, that, and the other. Maybe still they feel that same level of pain that I did, just in a different way. So maybe not. I don't know. But that's just kind of stuff that again I think about, and I just want to encourage people to go out there. I'm not accusing all you guys that haven't been like maybe the way I was or judging people in a certain way, but I think it's fair to say, if we're being honest with ourselves, that we do judge people a lot. All of us do. Whether you like it or not, we're always making judgments. And I think that's a good place to start. We're not being sincere if we don't own up to the fact that we're always making judgments one way or another about things. And there's always going to be situations where even if you're the nicest person in the world, you're going to ultimately pass judgments about other people at certain points or another throughout the week, even if you don't want to. And so that's just kind of one thing that I want to always try to do. It's hard, but I want to try to keep my own self in check with how I'm making judgments about other people as I interact with people and stuff. 100% was just talking with my family about this. Like everyone's 10 in pain is their 10. Breath over a walk. Beautifully put, honest and self-aware. I appreciate that, Tanner. I really seriously do, because that's one of those things, like it's difficult to process that, because the biggest caricature of that I often make is, so let's use like again, like the idea of a kid who is beat every day. And then let's use like, this is going to be an awful caricature, but it's the same concept of like, let's imagine a Kim Kardashian type, but even different. Let's imagine someone who was born excessively privileged, and They grew up very well taken care of financially. They grew up this, that, and the other. They had it all compared to the kid who was beat the crap out of their whole life. And then, and I'm gonna read your comment in a second. I just want to finish this thought because again, my mind's all over the place. Somebody commented yesterday. Was like, "Why don't you take Adderall?" First of all, I do not like medications, although I do believe they have their place very much. I just personally don't like them, and it's not just because I used to, I was like addicted to stuff. Like it was never pills. I did pills, but it was not like that was a thing for me. So I always try to be as honest as I can here, like very open to any degree, but not glorifying. But I just don't care for medication too much. I like to try to work on things myself, and some things about myself I don't want to tamp down. The way that I ramble, the way that I talk and stuff like that, I don't want to try to compress that because when I tried to do medication early on in life, for me, it really like numbed me off, and I wasn't able to feel. I didn't feel comfortable not being able to freely think, however my mind works. So it was just like, yeah. So again, if you don't like the way I talk, that's okay. I'm not asking anybody to stay, but to you guys who are interacting, thank you. But with that being said. So taking it back to this idea of a person who their worst experience, for instance, like they've been very privileged throughout their life, very well taken care of, and perhaps their worst experience is that they had I don't know, some type of thing they invested in and it fell through, or perhaps even something really, really stupid like they just got a new Beamer, like a Bugatti Veyron, and they crashed it and it got damaged or whatever. And to you, you're just like, who gives a crap? You're rich, you were born very well taken care of, and your car got busted up. Who cares? Why should that matter? You are seriously not experiencing pain to the depth that I am. And so this is a horrible caricature, very bad example. But on the same side of the tracks, to them, that is like the worst, like whatever it is, like that is the worst thing that they could possibly experience from their perspective. So if they're breaking down and crying and like seem like they're really suffering, I could make fun of it and be like, that's so stupid that this is hurting you this bad, that this thing or whatever didn't go the way you wanted it to. But is it possible to imagine that the pain that they're feeling they're experiencing it in the same depth as if I'm sitting there experiencing memories of being beat or something. So maybe we could argue that it's not. Maybe it's not the same level. Maybe they're not feeling the same exact depth of pain that I am. But maybe they are. Maybe because that's the worst thing that they know. Maybe their mind is taking it there. And so we're experiencing the same amount of pain just for a different depth of reason. So that's something that I've always wondered is are we experiencing different depths of pain or are we experiencing the same amount of hurt and suffering or trauma and pain just at different degrees of the reason why it happened. So we can try to understand those, just contemplate, roll it over. Maybe we don't have to try to see ourselves as far apart as we do. One of my own experiences is self-inflicted preconception of being judged. So when I very first met my wife, when we were going to go meet, when I was going to meet some of her family, who she herself didn't grow up rich. She grew up very well middle class, but her brother-in-law, who is like my, I guess, married in brother-in-law. I don't really know what you would call that, but I don't know what happened. I see something got deleted, but real quick, I do want to go down real fast. You popped up on my feeds just the last couple weeks. I appreciate that, Tanner. Thank you for being here. I don't know what got deleted, but I appreciate you doing whatever you had to do. But thank you. So with that being said, when I met my brother-in-law, I showed up. This is a giant house, not a mansion, but big house. And we pulled up, and I could see how they're like. I could understand now. Okay, I'm about to interact with people who grew up very well off, who grew up very well to do, all this crap. And immediately I started telling myself in my head, they're going to think a lot about me because of the way I look. If I even remotely talk about how I grew up, I didn't grow up like this at all. They're probably going to judge me. They're going to think this. They're not going to think I'm as up to their scale or something like that. And nobody made me feel that way. I just started making those assumptions about myself. It's funny because, if I am in any way, shape, or form categorized as like alternative compared to whatever's the normal, I guess, a lot of times, especially like back in the younger days, emo days, whatever, people are always kind of like, ooh, the preppy kids or these people or whatever are going to judge me, are going to judge me. But yet, in the same turn, we judge them back by just making assumptions that they won't like us because we're different. And everybody does that to each other, no matter who you are or where you come from. And that's one of those things where like, I was immediately welcomed. I was immediately shown love. Nobody judged me when I went in there. And I felt bad because I immediately thought that was going to happen before I even gave them a chance. And so stuff like this crap that I'm rambling about always just makes me think that we live in a world of all different types of people, going through all different sorts of experiences, levels of whatever. But the only way that we could ever try to start to develop and grow and get to know each other in any way, shape, or form across boundaries or division lines or markers, identity markers, is if we understand that regardless of where people come from and where they're going, at the same time, everybody's experiencing levels of pain. Everybody's experiencing different levels of like misunderstandings and judgments and all that crap. The only way we can get anywhere is to realize that and then try our best not to self victimize or make self assumptions before going into a situation, meeting new people, and then B, actually sincerely care to get to know new people. So, like when I'm doing this right here, I really do care when you guys comment and tell me whatever, if you do, whatever you've been going through, well, again, it's addiction stuff or anything else. I don't care how small it might seem, even if right now you're just struggling to let go of some type of frustration for something that happened at work today. That happens. It really seriously does. I had experiences months ago at my job where we're starting to change rules. We're starting to become. My company that I work for started off very unrealistic, just very relaxed. It's a candle maker supply company, so we make hundreds of fragrances in our lab for companies that make we have all the jars, wicks, different types of professional grade waxes, everything. It's a huge company, multiple facilities throughout the U.S. And basically, I was a family company for the past 30 years or whatever, and it was always very chill, very relaxed environment, not corporate. And turns out, to a degree, it was too relaxed, and so we were losing some money. And we ended up being a couple $1 million in the hole last year. And so we have re-altered stuff that we are now developing back. But for our company started striking down, like really getting more strict and really becoming more corporate minded. Because it turns out, unfortunately, you do kind of have to have that mentality. Because if you're too relaxed, there's always going to be too many people taking advantage of stuff. We wish it wasn't that way, but that's why we need rules and structure. And so, anyway, nobody cares about that. But as it started to become more serious, just like having a bad sugar addiction, all of us who got so used to things being a little too relaxed come kicking and screaming when we start getting, like, hey, you guys are talking a little too much. We really got to get these numbers done. We always get stuff done, but still, there needs to be a certain amount of integrity and care. So again, I know you guys are probably like, I don't care about this, but this is just a little anecdote of like, one of my bosses for a little while there was, I'll just use this as an example, was kind of coming to me. And early on, when we didn't really understand these rules changing, if me and my buddies were talking for like 2 minutes, they were just coming around the corner, they'd stop and tell us, hey, we got to get back to it. This was never a thing before. I know that's how it is in most companies, but for us, we just got so used to being able to just hang out and talk for a little bit and still get the job done. So in our minds, we were developing that, how dare you stop and talk? Like, we're going to get back to it. How dare you stop and talk? So you start having that mentality. Um, so again, it sounds really stupid. You're not really going to understand all the context, but just to fast forward a little bit, one day I was really frustrated with the interaction, and I was going to go say something in like a more standoffish way, but then for some reason, I don't, maybe it's a God thing, whatever. But I had this mentality. Let me talk to this person real quick, this particular lead, and just tell them, hey, you know what? I appreciate that you're trying to get me on track. You're trying to keep us going. I'm starting to understand the rules are changing. And instead of like a standoffish, how dare you? I was going to get back to work. I went up and just simply said, hey, I appreciate that you're trying to help us out. And this person started crying and gave me a hug and told me, because things have shifted, they got so used to themselves being more relaxed as a lead. They've been going through a lot of stuff at home, and then coming into the job now, they realize that other people are getting frustrated. Other people are now seeing them kind of as an enemy for riding everybody to a degree and trying to figure out how do we keep people going. People got way too used to develop bad habits to just screw off a little too much, and the company wasn't doing good in that sense. So we have to tighten up if we want to keep our jobs and things go well. And so this long conversation, just they're very grateful that instead of being standoffish, I was appreciative that they're just trying to help. And that turned into them continuing to more conversations, turned into them learning more and more how to do that in a different way that's even more and more effective, and feeling seemingly mutually respectful. But they didn't have to do that for me, and as well, I didn't realize how impactful it was going to be for them. So this whole convoluted long story is just to explain that sometimes how things seem, or the judgments that you are making about stuff, or even the way you want to react to something, is not always the way you should. Sometimes you really need to think, is there anything good here? Is it the other people? Everybody involved in a situation are always coming from a different angle and trying to do something. So like this person having pressure on them from the high up people, they got to keep people accountable. They have to because they're going to start really cracking down or get let go of people. And we did. We had a massive layoff too as well, like 30 people or 25 people, something like that, let go of. So it's kind of like, you never always understand everybody's different side of stuff, everybody's different angle and things. So that's the thing that I struggle with a lot, but I'm trying to always work on that. And I just want to encourage other people to do the best you can to learn to realize every different person you interact with has their own way they got to their conclusions, their own perspectives about things, and we also never truly do have an idea what people are actually going through. So, like I said, just random little anecdotes of why the title of this video is what it is that everybody's going through stuff differently. Everybody experiences things, everybody perceives things differently. So, I could sit here and, like I never like talking about politics, but people in the politics world love making fun of each other, super conservative, super liberal, whatever. Um, it's always like what you see on the news is caricatures of like the most extreme on both sides. And then there are a lot of people who fit that category, and media also makes a lot of people really, really stupid and afraid. That's kind of the whole thing is like, even in that realm, if I see somebody who's extremely liberal, extremely conservative, whatever, and they're acting like a caricature, I try to remind myself, one way or another, from fear, from concern, from compassion for their fellow people who are like them and stuff like that. It's kind of like what backs these people into a corner and makes them act the way they do. And I know people do a lot of stuff and say a lot of things that don't seem excusable. And we don't need to excuse stuff, but I do want to still remind people that, like, as a society, the best thing we can do is try to remember why people are different, how people get to their conclusions, and just if we can, if you ever do encounter a situation where something seems very like you're not okay with this, try your best to just breathe and assess, like, is there some other way I can approach this? Is there some other way I can interact with this situation and think about a little bit different these people, these circumstances that could be for positive instead of adding to the destruction? Because one thing is for sure, if you ever see somebody approach, or if ever somebody's like in the mood to be aggressive or to be standoffish and argumentative, what's probably not going to ever work, no, I shouldn't even word it that way, what's not going to work is meeting fire with fire. So trying to come at someone from the same way they're coming, they got in the position, the behavior, the posture they're currently in for a reason. And they're in the moment, they're emotionally not looking for somebody to come at them the same way they're coming. So it's really easy to want to fight fire with fire. But on the flip side, if you do, ironically, it always kind of feeds into whatever caused it in the first place. So again, if somebody's already looking like for a fight, looking for an argument, looking for whatever, if you come back at them that same way, you're like fueling internally the justification for them to do what they're doing. And it's much better and really will throw people. It's like they say, like, kill anger with kindness, or I can't, it's just the most basic sentence, and I can't remember. Kill them with kindness is what they say, but not literally kill them. But it really is that idea, so simple but still so hard to put into action, to just meet aggression with some form of peace to the extent that you can. Obviously, if you see somebody, by the way, again, just letting you guys know if you come through here, I know I'm a rambler, but let me read this real fast. I just want to see what you said. Think of sin, our fleshly selves gauge sin on a scale. Sin is sin, separation is something big shall not kill. Love, darkness, entity. So yeah, see, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's kind of like putting things on this scale of like, you're worse than me. See, that's one of the issues, like, for instance, when it comes to the more organized section of faith and religion and stuff, is when you see thousands and thousands of different churches. And it doesn't just happen in Christianity. It's a lot across the board in certain belief factors. But one thing you'll see a lot is like people always super excited to just gauge one another. Like, it's us versus them. And then you can't wait to like say everybody who's different than you, those are my enemies. Look at them. Look how bad they are. Look how much they're screwing up. I can't. Yeah, there's just like an excitement to join a group and then talk about how bad the other groups are. And I know a lot of people don't want to face that. But it's true, politically, religiously, everywhere across the board. People are always doing that kind of thing. Even the most acceptable people, the most welcoming supposed people in this world, no matter what walk of life they are, have people that they are already ready to like pass harsh judgments on if they was to interact with them. So again, that's one of the core things of like this conversation that I kind of wanted to just be there, just to remind people, I don't know what you're going through, I don't know what your situation is, I don't know what your beliefs are or lack thereof, but I just hope you know you really are not alone. But isolation is self-inflicted, and in a lot of cases, and the alienation's not self-inflicted necessarily always. It can be, but in a lot of cases, it is truly, like I said, generationally, we can pass things down to one another and at one another, and it does happen. But just want you to know you're not alone. And I don't know what you guys are going through, and please feel free if you come through here ever. Like, I know it might seem strange or difficult to like type out some stuff, but no matter how big or how small, if you're okay with it, if you just want to give it a shot, feel free in the comments. I wish we could talk face to face, but I also realized recently I was reminded why it's a good thing that it's not like Omegle or something like that, where just anybody can pop up and their voice be heard and they're just hollering and shouting over each other. But I wish it was a situation where we could all just be talking for real, and expressing stuff, because I know it's not easy to just share things through typing and stuff like that. But please do feel free to ever express things if you need to when you do these streams. But I am going to continue with this topic for a little bit longer because I got plenty of time this morning, and some other stuff that I wanted to say, but not quite to the same extent as yesterday, because yesterday I was definitely, like I said, experiencing some stuff, going through some darkness, some guilt, about, like I said, just recently heard of another person that I cared about passed away who did not, unfortunately, overcome their addiction. And it's still always just as hard to hear that, to hear that people did not do what I did. But I also keep reminding myself, I try to remind myself, not in like an egotistical way, but just like anything, like overcoming stuff you struggle with. It's not just about addiction to like drugs and substances, whether it's like food, bad habits, anger, sadness, like excessive lust and all this other junk. Everything that you're like struggling with is always something that you have to choose to override, and you've got to choose it. Nobody's going to do it for you. You've got to make the decision that I'm going to turn. And for me, like I said, I'm not pushing this in like a heavy religious way or nothing like that, because I know that it's not very always meaningful for most people. But as somebody who does believe in God myself, for very strong reasons, but again, not here to argue about it, understanding there's so much more than this. We are not just bound to our bodies and to the world around us. We really need to appreciate the world around us and how beautiful it is. But we weren't meant and destined to just be bound to it. And that's one of those discussions. Sorry if you see me rolling the window up and down. I don't want to just have the car running, but at the same time, it is pretty toasty here in North Carolina today. But me and my wife were having that conversation again yesterday, just tossing thoughts around about like how easy it is to feel a sense of unfairness that then turns into resentment. When you think about like your own struggles and the people around you, it can be really hard to have any type of spiritual hope sometimes if you're being very sincere about the things you see around you. When you see people in pain, when you see people suffering, and you ask the why, it can, a lot of times, like in debates and stuff, that discussion gets brought up as like the problem of evil. But I'm not going to really go all the way there. I'm just going to say it can be really easy to see like a sense of unfairness, because it seems to be very much more difficult to experience consistent joy or consistent goodness than it is super easy to be tempted into 1,000 different things a day. All this stuff that we humans are surrounded by that are just like right there to pull you into a dark direction, whether it's something that makes you feel petty and jealous, angry, or just simple stuff like stuff making you gain weight, all kinds of junk, right? Anger, whatever. So it seems like a level is off balanced here of unfairness at times, of how easy it is to be broken versus how easy or hard it is to not be broken. So that's just something we were kind of tossing back and forth. I'm not going to get too deep into that today, but I think about that a lot. So again, kind of rewinding me back to that feeling of guilt, of me overcoming my addictions and then other people around me not having been able to make it out the other side the same way. But with that being said, I'm going to veer off of that a little bit, because grief is something that I carry with me a lot. It's been a very long time since the people who are very, very close to me passed, that I wish I could still talk to and express things with all the time. But it's not like it really goes away. I think that when people try to tell you to just let go, that's not really a good way to I used to say that same stuff to people. Hey man, how are you? Sorry, perfumes that I ordered got delayed. I promised you a couple of streams ago. Hey, that's totally okay, buddy. I really appreciate you. Like, there's absolutely, you don't ever have to apologize. So again, this isn't a fragrance stream, but I am going to discuss some of that here in a little bit as I'm going through the rambling and everything. But so this is just me. My name's Andrew. That's my real first name. But again, this is the Douglas Moon Fragrance channel. So Douglas is my middle name. I do fragrance reviews and stuff on here, but I just, I love the idea that anybody who comes around, even if you never come back again, if you're just popping up on his stream, but if you are around, I love the idea that we can just connect to one another. So I don't know if this channel is ever actually going to really grow into a point where it's something I can make like a side career off of. But as I'm doing it, if it does grow, I want to have on the ground floor an establishment of like, I'm just going to be me, and I want anybody who's here to be you, and not really that strange, like, I'm this and you're that, we're disconnected from each other type of thing, because I find that to be just unhelpful. Some of my favorite musicians and people that I've looked up to over the years, they are very communicative through stuff like Instagram, whatever, and it really makes you help to understand them even better and to be meaningful. Christian, sorry, you guys. So, a follower of Christ, to be honest with you, so as a person who, just a quick more thing about personal about me, the church that me and my wife go to, again, everybody of all walks of life is welcome here, so I don't say any of it to alienate people who are on a different perspective of stuff, but as far as like a faith question, we go to a Baptist church, although I'm not going to say that I disagree with like the church's stance to a full extent, but I just have never really been huge in claiming a particular thing because, again, it's like to me, a sense of division. It is here's where we are. We're categorized here, and here's. I understand there's differences in a bunch of different things, but yeah. So I would just say I follow the teachings of Jesus the best that I can, but still fail all the time. On the flip side, uh, I do go to a church that is a denomination. It's just denominations don't really mean anything to me. They mean something to me if there is a negative category to it, but that's not all. That's not really very often the case, except for in certain aspects. So, but yeah, but that's just the thing. But all questions are welcomed here, and I appreciate you very much. And Tanner, as well, I also see what you're saying. I'm sorry, I was just going down a thought there, and I appreciate you being here, buddy. But yeah, so basically that's the whole thing. It's like grief. Grief can really stick with you, and telling people to just let things go really isn't very helpful. And I've done it myself a lot, and I've kind of passed that. So it's kind of all right to realize you're going to carry a lot of stuff with you. Like, what this is going to sound kind of silly, but maybe you'll understand this. But the worst loss that I have personally had um, these past years, other than when my aunt, who was like another mom to me, passed years back, like 2013, was actually my dog. Last year, me and my wife's dog, she had some serious health problems. And again, this isn't some woe is me thing. This is just me talking. But she had some serious health issues and had to be put to sleep. And she was always in some major pain. And so when the time came that that had to happen, it was the saddest. It was truly like the most impactful thing for me to ever have experienced, almost, because she was my best little buddy. And yet, in this circumstance, I could see before it had to happen, at least it very much felt to me like she didn't understand, or she felt, I felt like the way it looked in her face, because I was there with her as it had happened, she felt betrayed. That's what like my mind swallowed, was that it looks like I can tell she's afraid, and it feels like she's being betrayed right now, or she thinks that, like, how could I let this happen to her? But like, I knew, like, by the way the discussions and everything was, she was in serious pain, and there was no doing anything about it. So I was like, we just got to go through with it. And yet it still like hit me in a way that, to this moment, a year and some change later, I still haven't gotten past the look on her face and then the experience of it. So that's one of the things that has eaten me up a lot this past year too. But like I said, grief is grief, and we carry it with us very, very hard. So, but I appreciate you guys being here. I'm not going to be doing this a whole lot longer today, but I am about to gear shift the topics a little bit. As I do, you guys are more than welcome to talk about anything you need to in the comments, because I said, like, when I do this, it means a lot to me that I get to just kind of open up and express stuff that I'm thinking about, hear stuff that you guys are thinking about. But I do kind of want to talk about a little bit more like why I shifted the purpose of the channel a little bit, of what I was starting to do and where I'm going to be going from here. Before I do that though, I'm going to take a mild little break for a second. I have no shame in what I have to do, but somebody cracked a funny joke yesterday. But unfortunately, when you drink a lot of water and you hang out in the car, sometimes you just gotta do this is the part where if there was like a bunch of people watching, a bunch of people would leave. But sometimes you just gotta do your little thing. I know a guy once who told me, I can't believe that you pee in the bottle or whatever, because he's like, I would never do such a thing. I was like, well, dude, when you're going down the highway, or if you're in the back seat of a car and like you really gotta go and people ain't pulling over, especially when you start getting that old man bladder, you ain't got a choice. You gotta do what you gotta do, or you about to make a mess in somebody's car. And also, they tell you to drink so much water a day. I swear, when you actually put that into action, boy, oh boy, does it. I just don't understand how you're supposed to do that and not stay in the bathroom. So it's one thing when you got IBS, but it cranks up to 1,000 when you start actually having to like really use the bathroom. Also, there's always people driving by me a lot, like right up on my car when this happens, so that's not very helpful. One day, somebody's going to comment on here that they just saw me, and I'm going to be like, I'm so sorry about that. But anyway, with all that said, so just to rehash, start to kind of gear shift a little bit and talk a little bit more about me because I've already been talking about me, I know, but on this channel, like I said, I want you to get to know me and why I do the type of stuff that I do. I've been struggling through so much, almost numb, hard to push myself in the moment, and always dealing with so much anxiety, something I struggle with. Can I ask you this? Just because I want to get like understand a little bit better. Okay, so you said you've been through so much that you've almost become numb and hard to push through. Okay, so I definitely was curious if you wouldn't mind, like, what is it? Is it specific things that make you feel anxious? Again, it's one of those things me and my wife talk about a lot. Is like when it comes to anxiety, there is a general sense that sometimes some people, especially when you have like chemical issues and stuff like that, but a lot of times, from what I hear from people and experience myself, is that if you have a general sense of anxiety, it is because there are things to some degree or another, whether we suppress it or not, that you are anxious about, or that are at least underlying influences in a day-to-day life, even if it's stuff like feeling like you're not succeeding. Like yesterday, again, going through that grief, I was talking about how a feeling of like never being able to do anything right, or if never feel like you're doing things quite right or like you should be, and like you don't deserve where you are or something to be where you are. So that kind of thing right there can, if that's your baseline, it can seriously affect the way you go through the rest of your day, the way you interact with people, the way you perceive things, or whatever. So with that being said, just out of curiosity for you, with you, is there anything in particular, certain subjects and concepts that keep you in that state, or that you feel like that hold on to you? The minute I leave the house, I'm anxiety ridden, get rambunctious. I understand. I get that. So I definitely feel where you're coming from. That's one of those things too. Like I'm very much a private person. Like I know that doesn't. It really doesn't make sense when people like me are doing stuff like this, and I say I'm private. Again, even looking how I do it doesn't make any sense when I say I don't want people to look at me. But like I did the tattoos just because I liked them and I wanted to see them on myself. At the time I was 18 and really didn't think about other people were going to be staring at me and approaching me in public, which I'm totally fine with people coming up and wanting to like say hello and ask me questions. But at the same time, it does cause me anxiety. But for me, being looked at, being watched, I just really like being private. So like, for instance, if you're ever hanging out with people who are being very loud in public, I don't know why, but that drives me insane. My mom is a very loud talker. She's also a very loud whisperer. She's one of those people who thinks that just because she talks in a whispering formation, nobody can hear her now, even though she's whispering with every ounce of like breath in her lungs. And it's like, oh no, I let that in. Dang. That's one of the bugs is another thing that I absolutely despise. But yeah, my mom is definitely one of those people who talks like super duper loud, and it just drives me absolutely insane. And the minute someone says hi, I'm a mess. Worthy, it's hard to stop completely special. Absolutely, buddy. And you say you struggle with like smoking weed, marijuana, and stuff like that. I never. It's funny. During the years of my addiction, that was something I never really connected to. But I do understand for a lot of people, it's like a calming source. As you see, I talk a lot. I move a lot. I don't. I never liked being very still. I always like to go, go, go. So like, I definitely understand that it's very, very difficult to let go of something like that. That is your vice. That is your source of rest. And to my buddy, I worry all the time about what people think. I get that, Kia. Like, I really, we tell people don't worry about what other people think. We tell people don't worry about what's going through other people's minds or whatever. It's easy to say, but it isn't really realistic because when you're interacting with people, to some extent, for better or for worse, you're always to some degree thinking about what people are thinking as they're interacting with you. Even if it's not always about self-judgment, you're still kind of like, the only way you can even connect to somebody, like empathetically, for instance, if people are dealing with stuff, is by caring about what they're thinking. But I know what you mean is, technically speaking, people's judgment on you. And that happens. Like, as parents, for instance, we got all the extremes these days. So like, for instance, I'm very, very against, no offense to anybody, not trying to be offensive, but I'm going to share my thoughts here. But like when I'm in a public restaurant or a store, And there's those people, and I'm about to make a statement. I'm being kind of jokey, but it's also serious. But like a lot of the times in this case, it's more like very noticeably super hippy dippy or like very liberally style like appearing people. And I don't mean that like there's anything wrong with being liberal. You get what I'm saying? But like there's a certain type of parent who is very okay with letting their child throw an absolute tantrum in public places. And if that's you, I'm not trying to offend you right now, but that is there is this like concept that people have developed, very bad, doesn't work, very it just helps develop very bad habits, to be honest with you, of letting your kids just go all out, just absolutely rage, especially in public in front of other people. And the mentality behind it, I'm pretty sure, is if you do that, they'll either, I don't know, like let it all out and be done with it, which it seems like there's absolutely no end to it, or I don't really know what the exact mentality of it is, but it is very unhealthy. Again, it's just me sharing my thoughts. If you disagree, that's fine. But you have to address when problematic behavior is happening, especially if you're teaching your kids. So there are people who have absolutely zero shame, and they are under that concept, that parenting style, just letting their kid lose their absolute mind. I'm not talking about like a baby or something crying, or like a young child like getting fussy. I mean, like, I'm sure you guys have seen it, where there's those parents who just sit there and like just completely ignore while their kid's screaming at the top of their lungs they want something. They're acting like a full-on brat, right? We're talking about distinctions here between a child going through something and being a full-on brat. And when I see that, I'm just like, this is horrible, but that is a parenting style, and there's a lot of people who just don't care. But then on the flip side, there's also people who are like um, very, very embarrassed for their child to even be uh, a child in public. And I'm not saying that's you, Kia. I'm just saying it's very, very easy for oh my gosh, this is gonna drive me crazy. I'm sorry, you guys. I get super distracted easy. Let me see your comment real quick. Vulnerability, patient in a moment is what you fall back on. Example: self-reliance, family. Dude, this is life. Tanner, thanks for being engaging and asking questions. Oh god, this is gonna drive me nuts. This is one of those gnats that just never stops moving, even when you want to find it and you want to kill it. As you can see, this is where you guys get to discover what it takes to throw me off of my track. But anyway, yes, I agree with you, 100% respectful, and we will discuss this at a different time. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's difficult to go through those experiences. Wait a minute, I think I almost got it. Yes, yes. You know you want to sit still, don't you, my friend? You are seriously seeing man versus beast right now, and you're seeing me be demolished. Favorite Bible verse? The entirety of Romans 12. That is my favorite. And there's no singular verse, it's just the entirety of Romans 12. But so with that being said, uh yeah, it's very much a situation where encouraging bad behavior encourages bad habits, and then it just becomes a thing that sticks like a freight train, and there's really no getting around that. um Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, you guys. It's really driving me crazy. I really shouldn't have did what I did, like having the window down. Let me read what you said, Chase. 3 weeks sober from marijuana after heavy use for a decade. It's been very difficult back in a test my energy. Absolutely, like, that's one of those things is when you start to try to let go of things that have had a really strong hold on you, especially substances like that, it can take a while to kind of have a new baseline. It's the same thing with getting rid of anything. If you have to find a new baseline for yourself when you have had something be a huge part of your life, and the same thing goes not just something like weed or something, it's also sugar and everything like that, becomes very routine, and it can be super hard to completely let go of and to start to say, okay, this is how I'm going to deal with things now, whether it's a lack of energy or too much energy, whether it's excitement, depression, and all that stuff. Like you saying about me being vulnerable and stuff, I appreciate that, because it's what I really want to do. I want to encourage just other people, including myself and all of us, to become more that way. And like I've become more comfortable being that way, and the more I talk with you guys and open up, and 100% taking care of everyone else and not myself, push it deep down. See, and that's another thing too. Definitely having the mentality that you have to put other people before yourself. A person told me a long time ago, and I really hate to say this is one of those people who I lost last year to substances, but this person did tell me something. And I also really hate when people say that because somebody makes mistakes or because somebody's an addict or they struggle with stuff, that you shouldn't listen to what they've got to say or listen to their advice. It's not true. Every single person, no matter what they're struggling with, has still the capability of understanding. But this person told me once, that idea that, like, if a plane's going down, for instance, I can't remember exactly what they were saying, but like, if you're not in a good position to some degree or another, and you can't help other people as well, not truly, even if you think you can. So you have to try to help yourself first and foremost before you can help others. And that really is true. Like, it's not always like across the board, but in certain categories of life, you have to try to kind of get yourself in a certain place before you can actually be of value and of assistance to other people in a meaningful way. And into the truest core, be really stable, have like a foundation there. By the way, I know that belief or faith or like godly involved things or anything along that spectrum hasn't been a key component of anything I've had to say, but there's a reason to some degree for that. And it's that we had to have all kinds of conversations, and some of them are very specific. And what I've been doing here is the very focused human side of things. Because throughout development and growth, there is a lot of stuff that's supposed to be under one big umbrella, but still needs to be separated and broken down. And working through things like, again, internal development and grief and so much more, and understanding people and different people, different walks of life, and different people's levels of experience is a very much like a mental, it's still spiritual, but also a predominantly human thing that we have to start from somewhere to really work our way in. And that's kind of what the whole thing is here. But with all that being said, just to do a quick rehash before I gear shift a little bit on certain other parts of the subject, before I talk too much in a different direction, before I have to end this, very much that I began to let my physical take a toll and relied on substances to bring me joy. Child, white knuckling it was taking a toll on me. Absolutely, and that's really a huge thing. Is when you keep trying and trying to go at it a certain angle and stuff, and like, maybe what I'm about to say doesn't really relate to what you're talking about completely. I'm going to veer off like a little subcategory there, but sometimes one thing is really hard for when we're just grinding through the struggles. Sometimes one thing we don't also notice, this isn't any one of you guys in particular, it's just something I know I've done, is that you're trying to make changes, but there's aspects of things that are part of whatever all the list is of stuff you've got to let go of or get rid of to make the right changes that you don't want to let go of. So there's something you'll agree with yourself. You will say, all right, I compromise. I agree. I'll let go of this, and this off of this list. Here's the actual list, if I'm being really honest with myself, of things I need to work on and alter so that I can start to progress as a person in my life, spiritually, physically, whatever. But like, you negotiate with yourself. And here's like the amounts of stuff you're ready to let go of. But there might be even just one thing on that list that you're like, something about that, I'm not going to really let go of that, even if it's just a perspective. And so I'm not saying this has to do with what you were just saying, but it kind of made me think about it when you talked about white knuckling it was taking a toll on you. Like, I'm thinking about that concept. Sometimes when we're really trying to figure out the right steps to start to change and shift and to grow a little bit. By the way, you're throwing this out there that there's no such thing as an end to growing. Really, what you guys don't understand now, it's the same concept as like goal mentality. We need to have goals, but your goals do not need to be your core identity, or like one single big goal should not be the thing. They always talk about the most successful people work towards little goals at a time. Because there are people, I'm going to use another person who's close to me. And I started to develop this mentality once when I thought it seemed like the right thing to do until I realized it's very unhealthy. But there's a person who's close to me who, to this day, having children recently changed this person's life for the better. Though that's not always the case for everyone. Having children is always a blessing, but it just depends on your situation and your circumstances how you'll see that and how it affects you. Regardless, this person was a next big thing person. So this person's whole life, and they made like big accomplishments. Like, they really was very organized and took the most out of every situation. This person got so many licenses and certificates and like career after career after freaking career. This person was like constantly killing it. And from a perspective, you're looking at this person and going, wow, they're really doing great. They're doing so great. But multiple layers of conversations and then really looking at this person from the outside began to show, wait a minute, nothing's ever enough. This person's whole life and identity is based off of the perception from others of their successes. And that was a huge thing for me to realize, like, wait a minute, this person's not just goal-oriented. This person's never satisfied. They've got to go to the next big accomplishment. And that broke me. And I tried to talk to this person about it. And at that point, they were they had made so many accomplishments. It's kind of like Bam Margera, for instance, or like a lot of people who become rich young, people who become very successful financially and publicly or whatever, like young. Um, like I remember watching an interview of Bam Margera's parents where they were talking about how like we couldn't tell him nothing. He was a professional skateboarder at like 13. He had millions of dollars in the bank waiting on him before he was 18 years old. He was killing it. And so it's like, how do you really tell somebody who is just fortunate enough to fall into that circumstance what to do when they're like, I know what to do. You don't gotta tell. You can't tell me nothing. Like I'm more successful than you. I know what to do. So, not that the person who's personal to me was trying to be that way, but when I realized, like, wait a minute, this person's life for all these years has been bouncing from goal to goal to goal. Um, when I tried to kind of talk with them about it, they were kind and they weren't like standoffish in a hateful way, but you could feel that sense of the way they negated stuff. They weren't seeing it, they weren't understanding it, but there was a nagging sense of pressure that they were just never good, nothing's ever good enough. They saw themselves as awesome and good enough, like not like they weren't being a douchebag about it, but you get what I'm saying. Like making your identity based around giant goals is futile because let's say you're a musician and you're trying to write an album. And if your whole goal is to make the singular best album ever, and then you feel like you accomplished that, there comes like from a lot of musicians I've listened to over the years, they say when they had that mentality, instead of just each time making music that they love at that moment, performing it through the tour cycle and then moving on and continue to make stuff just comes from a passion, like a never ending passion. If you just got this one singular giant goal, like I'm gonna do this really amazing thing, if you cross that mountain, you have this huge dip of like, what do I do now? What's the next thing? By the way, again, I just want to throw this out there. I'm super sorry that I'm such a rambler. In a way, I'm not sorry for being who I am, but I know that probably sometimes this gets a little difficult to listen to. I appreciate you guys also communicating with each other in the comments. It means a lot to me. That's what I want here. Whether it's me doing my normal stuff like the fragrance content or when I'm doing this kind of stuff, I want the atmosphere to always be that we're having time together. And that it's not just me. I want you guys to communicate with each other too in a meaningful way. So I really appreciate y'all so very much. Sorry, y'all. I turned the air on, but a plane was flying over at that right moment, and I thought, holy cow, is that my car? But anyway, so that's just something that I was thinking about is like making giant goals your big accomplishment. But once those things happen, now you're like, what do I do? And how am I ever going to top what I just did? And then some people are just constantly trying to go to that next big thing instead of being happy with the process. My favorite people I've always looked up to, and I still struggle with this. My favorite people I've always looked up to talk about how you just got to learn to be happy with the process of developing. So I say all that to say, if you are going through some serious stuff, again, whether it's addiction or it's mental health stuff, whatever, pain, grief, don't have this perspective. Try not to develop this perspective that there is some type of like cap to that moment, to that experience, to that journey that you just got to get over and then you're set. Because there's always going to be more. There's always going to be highs and lows. That sounds very vapid and stupid, but it's the truth. There's always going to be moments where peace comes, even if it takes a very long time to get there. And then there's always going to be moments of like absolute hell, nightmares. Everything's just broken. You don't know what to do. You don't know even who you are at this point. And yet, as long as there is a new day, there is new potential, new opportunities. Things are not done and over with. That's probably the key takeaway I want to say is everybody experiences things differently, like the title of this video. No matter who a person is or where they're coming from, they are human. They're experiencing things. We have to try to be compassionate. We have to try to understand, be loving, and just show some sense of compassion for people. That is key. And just the best you can, not be excessively critical of yourself. We have to learn to be accountable without being excessively critical. I know it seems like kind of the same thing. I'm probably using a very bad idea of speech here, but if you get what I mean, we need to be able to be account to ourselves, hold ourselves to account for the stuff that we're doing that's holding us back from being good towards others, from growing, while at the same time not beating ourselves up. And I say that as a huge hypocrite. I am a massive hypocrite. Most of the stuff I'm going to tell you guys and try to explain to you guys, I'm not good at. And that's the whole reason why I want to do this. Is never on my channel ever is it like, here's me telling you some really good advice and then look at me, I'm awesome about it. I'm terrible at it. When it comes to like taking care of my health, I have these ups and downs. I have these highs and lows like we all do. So just understand that I don't think I'm better than anybody. and none of us ever are. It doesn't matter if there's certain aspects of life where you're. That's why when I do my ending prayer for all my streams and stuff, I'm always like bringing up that concept. If you feel like you're failing at one purpose of your life, there's like loads of purposes for your life, not just one. So if you feel like you're failing, just know you are succeeding somewhere. Even if you don't think so, you are doing good in some aspect of your life, even if it seems like everywhere else you suck. I assure you, not to just feel absolutely hopeless, please, if you can help it. Not to let yourself just feel like everything is absolutely going nowhere. I'm no good. I suck. You don't. I promise you, even if it seems that way to you. But with that being said, I am going to gear shift just a little bit before we go. You guys are more than welcome, like I always say, to continue to tell me your thoughts, stuff you're going through. I'm not going to do another one like this for a little while. I just wanted to try this out. As I continue to develop this channel and the way I'm doing my things, I have gone back to Douglas Moon Fragrance. That is my original name. That's what's on my silver play button. That's the primary thing for this channel. Oh, I'm going to get that little guy this time. I'm sure I'm going to get it. Wait, guys. Wait. Come on, just land. This is like the most active little gnat that I've ever seen in my entire life. Not literally, but like you get what I'm saying. This little dude just doesn't stop. Anyway, all right, besides me looking crazy. So, fragrances, other than other stuff, like discussing life and everything, and then religious studies is like my biggest passion. That's the truth. Perfumery is like such a huge thing for me, learning about perfumery, and that's what this channel started off as, and that's what it's going to continue to be. Like the core thing is me doing fragrance reviews, doing fragrance live streams, but talking about life and you guys getting to know me on a one-on-one instead of me just being some kind of content creator. That is going to be the primary thing as well, or like the secondary thing. And during the live streams as well about fragrance stuff, like I'm going to do later tonight. Me and my wife, she wants to either tonight or tomorrow do a stream with me where she gets to talk about my favorite fragrances and then choose the ones for her on camera and everything. So that's going to be really fun. And she wants to start being featured in a lot more stuff with me. She's getting past that shyness. So I'm excited about that. But I did want to just say, like I said, I hope that these streams are meaningful to any of you guys. I really, really do. I hope that in any way, shape, or form, somehow you felt like you got to connect to me more and to know me a little bit better. And I definitely want to continue to get to know you guys better as you come through here. And I really appreciate y'all from the bottom of my heart, in the most sincerest ways that I could say that and mean it. Like, I'm really thankful that every time that you guys come through here and talk with me. And Kia, thank you for sharing with me the stuff that you've been feeling, like your anxiety and everything. I know I'm not very helpful about it because your journey's yours and mine's mine. But I just want you to know you're not alone. Every one of you guys who are coming through here, you are not on your own. You're never going to be. Please don't isolate yourself. Please don't just feel like just to choose to let yourself keep sinking into brokenness. I just send oceans of love to you guys. So thank you so much for being here, really, really, and truly. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about before we go? Let me know. But I am going to go ahead and mention this. No, I think I'm going to keep that for another time. But yeah, like I said, just remember, different people go through things differently. Everybody experiences stuff differently. And that's going to be continually a core message for me. Next time, I do kind of want to talk about, when I got more time again, I kind of want to gear shift into discussing about belief in general and like spiritual concepts and things, like things that I've experienced, things that I think. I want to get to know you guys and on your stances and on your growth and perspectives on your journey. Everybody's welcome. There is going to be no judgment, condemnation, hate, anything, for no matter what walk of life you are, where you're coming from, and your stances on things, as long as you're being respectful to each other. That's just going to be the thing, and everybody's going to be welcome. But yeah, so basically that's kind of where I wanted to leave it off at, is that I appreciate you guys so very much. And it's a never-ending journey, this beautiful thing called life. And sometimes it's hard to understand where you want to go next with things. But yeah. So as you can see, though, I'm becoming extremely distracted because this stupid little gnat thing will not stop. It is like go, 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 go. So me kind of talking about the particular subject that I wanted to get into, I'm not going to be able to focus. So yeah, later on, me and my wife, like I said, are going to try to do a fragrance stream where we just discuss our favorite things and get into it. And I really do look forward to it because my wife is very hard. Like when we get home at night, she's very sleepy. She's a very sleepy person, much more than I ever am. And it's really difficult to get her to hold still for very long and tell me. Like, she doesn't like picking favorites. She really doesn't like it even worse than me. I've come to find that the older I get, for some strange reason, it's difficult for me to pick out what I like over other things. So somebody asking me what my favorite food is or my favorite color, for some reason, that stupid crap makes me feel like I'm going to panic, and I don't know why. Not literally like I'm going to panic, but it drives me crazy. For some strange reason, I just don't like trying to tell people what my favorite thing is anymore, because I don't know. Like literally right this moment, I tried to think this morning again, what's my favorite color? And there's a couple that I like so much I don't want to have to choose. So I really don't know. Side note, I don't mind finding out what you guys' favorite colors is if you'd like to share. But favorite musicians, all that crap. What's my favorite food? I have absolutely no idea what my favorite food is. I know a couple things that I love very much. My mind always wants to tie things. That's why when I recently did my top 30 favorite fragrances, the only thing I know for sure, and even then it's still kind of hit or miss, is what my favorite fragrance is. And that's just because there's one that speaks to my soul so deeply, and then there's another one though that connects with me and my wife really hard. So it's hard for me not to want that one to be the thing instead. But it's my number 2. So you get what I'm saying. I don't know if you guys struggle to pick your favorite things, but I really have a hard time doing that. So my wife's even worse at it. She's like, I love it all. I love it all so much I can't choose. But that's what we're going to try to do later, is see if we can't get her to oh yes, yes, oh my goodness, yes, finally we have success. I know this is like a stupid thing to you guys, but it's like a monster victory for me. That gnat finally is gone from the car. I knew going for a little parking lot drive and rolling the window down was going to do the trick, and he's gone. And he's probably going to go tell all his little friends too. He's going to be like, hey, I was on a live stream today, and I was flying all over the place. I really did my little thing. And they're going to be like, that's awesome, Steven. No offense to anybody out there named Steven, but for some strange reason, that name's always been funny to me. I know it shouldn't be, but it just sounds like a funny name to me. I'm sorry. There's probably like 7 Stevens watching right now. Out of the 8 people watching, I'm sorry, but for some reason that name's always been funny to me, and it just gives me a kick. So anytime something's annoying me, although I've never known an annoying Steven before, but anytime something's driving me crazy, I always just imagine that's his name. And not just Steven, but it's the one spelled with a PH, the freaking Stefan or whatever. I know that a lot of people pronounce it Steven, but I don't know what it is. It just drives me nuts. But that's another stupid little thing about me. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. It's weird because people who are closest to me know me as someone who likes to joke around a lot, and that's literally been my thing. I used to do explicitly do like comedy skits and stuff like that before I started going down this road, but I'm always super serious during the stuff I do these days, that almost none of you have gotten to really experience like what it's like to hang out with me and like talk day to day. So sorry about that, but maybe we'll get to that a little further. But there were, as you can see, pretty serious subjects that I kind of wanted to work through for a while, and I think that I'm pretty happy with how that's worked. I expressed a lot of things that I wanted to with the religious studies stuff, but I'm going to do a different channel for that down the road when I've got the time and like the focus to do it. But my biggest thing I want to continue forward, like I said, is the fragrance thing, so that's where I'm going to go. Plus there's just things about like life and God and faith that I feel like I wasn't allowing myself to really express in the past, for that exact same worry about how people were going to feel about it and what people were going to think about what I had to say. And it's taken a while to work through that kind of stuff to feel more comfortable opening up, because the truth is, you're never going to make everybody happy. You're really not. Especially when you talk about stuff on the internet. If it becomes a very specific topic like religion and belief, there are people who have so many different perspectives on things but don't realize that there's differences, and that's okay to have differences. But people don't kind of act that way about it. So it really does become arguments and disagreements very fast, and people don't allow one another to be different about those kind of subjects. So it can become very touchy. So like I said in the past, I'm not religious enough for lots of people, and I'm too religious for a lot of people. So for me, I think in the future I want to kind of more, the next time I do a stream like this, I'm going to be a lot more like open about my own beliefs about certain things. So that way you're allowed to hear it, and then if you don't want to keep listening to me, you don't have to. And if you do, that's okay. That's great. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Please don't ever think I think I'm better than anybody. I'm absolutely not. I'm just a person. And I want to encourage you, if you are going to come back to the channel, the next time I do a stream like this, I will announce it somehow. If you're not going to subscribe, that's okay. But just check back periodically. But the next time I want to talk about life, about experiences, about mental health, or what have you, not using that as like a buzzword, but the next time I'm going to have this kind of discussion, I would like to encourage, if you intend to come back, maybe think about some stuff yourself that you want to see if you want to work through and be a little interactive about and put out there. And I'd love to kind of like hear your thoughts and back and forth about stuff because there might be subjects about all this I didn't even touch on. There might be different angles or perspectives that I didn't get into, and that's okay because I'd like to learn it from you guys. But yes, my name is Andrew, aka this is my channel, the Douglas Moon Fragrance channel. That's my main thing that I do. I know it can be a little confusing for people when they see a person whose name says fragrance talking about life and mental health and stuff like that. But if you know me, if you're not new around here, then you understand why it is that I do that. But it's just very important. Grief has been on my mind a lot lately. I think it's obviously on everybody's minds. There's like huge things going on in the world today, and it's not a secret. It's never, as I said yesterday, there's never been a time where there hasn't been like war and destruction and stuff like that to some extent or another. People have always been fighting over religion, fighting over territory, property, whatever. And it's just so stupid. It's funny to me that we even as people, as many people as us as there is, have allowed like dummies to become leaders and to do hard things in this world to other people, and we don't do anything about it. We didn't do anything about it before we could, but the truth is, it does not take actual intelligence to be charismatic. It just takes charisma. Charisma is really all you kind of need to convince most people to follow somebody, even if they absolutely don't deserve to be followed. I'm not talking about a specific individual or not at this moment. I'm just making a serious statement. So when I look at the world and I see a lot of pain and suffering, that's why, if I can, I want to use this avenue here to do even a little bit amount of like pushing past that. So thank you guys so much for coming through here. I really appreciate you. I'm going to do what I normally do when I end these streams. I'm going to pray real fast because that's very important to me. So again, whether you're a Hindu, an atheist, a Muslim, a Christian, it doesn't matter to me. I just care that you're here, and I thank you, and I want to pray for you guys. And then, if you want to bow your head, that's fine. If you want to ask questions while I pray, if that's not for you, that's fine too. This is not a pushy place. This is not an argumentative place because those things are not helpful. This is just me being me, and you guys getting a chance to be you. So I don't know why, but I don't like the camera being on me when I pray. So if you ever somebody asked me the other day why I always turn it away from me when I do this, that's the way it is. But dear God, thank you so much for this day. Seriously, it means the world to me that you are with me and with all of us. But specifically, I'm gonna say real quick, thank you for being with me through all the trials and the struggles, and thank you not just for the things that I've been able to see you have set in place for me. Should I make the right choices? But thank you for giving me the ability to make decisions. I am grateful that I got to screw it up. I'm grateful that I get to do better. I'm grateful that I get to be a part in this, God. And I pray that everybody who's watching gets to realize that same thing and that just gets to continue on their journey and just have blessing and peace and real actual love in their life. It means the world to me that love is the core thing for us all, but we have to work through things to get there and come together and understand one another to get there. And I thank you for that, God. There's so much stuff we think we understand, we don't. There's so much stuff we think we figured out, and you show me all the time, and we just don't. There's so much more to learn. So I lift all these people up to you. Everybody who came through for whatever reasons they did, for better or for worse, I pray for them and I hope for the love in their life and peace. So in your name I pray and I love you, God. Amen. Thank you guys so much for being here. Again, I always do that. Again, it's not something I do to like be pushy or forceful or nothing. It's just part of who I am, and hopefully it's meaningful to you guys as well. So again, you can call me Douglas. I'm gonna try to make it easy for you guys. My first name is Andrew. I switched the channel name for a while because I was doing other stuff here to like my full first and middle name. Um, if you guys ever want to talk, because again, you can't really do that here. You don't have to follow me. That's never what this is about. I'm excited when you guys subscribe. I'm excited when you watch my actual videos and comment and stuff like that. And especially when you hit the like button. That's really cool because it helps the algorithm. It's not like I don't want that to happen. Um, I'd be a liar if I said I don't want this to grow and again become something that I could do and like earn some type of income doing that's like any way substantial. That'd be great. I'd love it if that happened, and I'd be fake if I said I didn't. But I don't need you guys to feel pressured into subscribing or following me anywhere. So when I say if you want to ever talk to me, I'm not always going to be great at responding. Again, that's one of those areas where I suck. I'm good at talking when I have the chance to speak my voice, but I don't really love to type. So if you do find me on Instagram and you message me, I'm going to send you voice messages back. That's how I communicate. I don't like typing unless I absolutely have to. So if you find me on Instagram and you want to communicate, it's the same thing. Douglas Moon Fragrance. You can look that up on Instagram. You don't have to follow me if you don't do that kind of stuff. But if you do want to talk, you can message me on there, and I'll do the best I can to keep up those communications. But just understand, you're gonna get voice messages from me. I don't know if you guys use Facebook. I do Messenger on there even better. But at the same time, in some way, I almost feel like maybe it's not good. I've been told it's not good to put that level of like your stuff out there for some reason because there's people who might want to do weird stuff if they somehow get your info or something. I don't know. I don't really care. I'm not popular or famous or nothing, so I don't think anybody would do that to me. I don't see why they would, and it wouldn't be any benefit. But you never do know. Anything could happen, so I guess that's one of my things. But on Instagram, for sure, Douglas Moon Fragrance. If you want to message me and communicate more private stuff, if there's stuff you're just really not comfortable talking about on here, please feel free to do it, and I'll get back to it when I can. But yeah, that's just how I communicate through voice calls. And worst comes to worst, if you're ever like really suffering, I might not be able to do it right away, obviously, because I got a life where a lot's going on outside of doing this. But we can even talk on the phone if you ever need to. I don't mind that. I will, if you ever get to that point, I am going to just say I'm going to have to trust you if I do give you my contact information to not be weird. But I mean, just like here, I can block you if I have to. It's just a disclaimer, but if you ever like really need to talk, I don't mind doing that too, because it's just like I love to communicate. And again, if you live anywhere near North Carolina, if you ever have the opportunity to meet up as well, um, I wouldn't mind doing that. If you see me out in public and you recognize me, you might get hit or miss. I'm a fragrance YouTuber, but I also am very sweaty, so I like to wear fragrances. I'm supposed to smell good, but I'm not gonna lie, as somebody with IBS who can be very gassy, you might get crop dusted if you come up to me in public. You never know. Or again, it might be one of them days where I was very sweaty, like I am right now. And so don't be surprised if you do ever meet me in public and you go, "Wow, I thought you were gonna smell good." You do not. It can happen. I'm just throwing it out there. So if it does, I'm not sorry. It's just how it is. But I still will give you a hug if we ever meet in person, and it would be really nice for me to just hang out with you and talk. So please, if you ever for some reason see me out and about, don't feel shy to come up and say hey. But I appreciate you. I thank all you guys who've taken the time to stop through here today. I pray for blessings for each and every one of you guys. And yeah, so seriously, if there's anything else anybody wants to talk about, I'm going to give you just a minute real quick to take the time. I'm going to look at something real fast. But please feel free to comment below if you need to. And if not, I am about to go ahead and end this stream. So thank you so very much for letting me talk to you about life and what have you else. All right. The time is almost up. I'll be seeing you guys later. I'm going to give it a few more seconds. I like things to be even numbers. It might sound really strange, but I like things to be like evened out. All right. Have a beautiful day, you guys.